after all the meetings are done, now it's time for us to ask acquirers to tender a formal LOI. Now, up front, they may have given us an IOI and then an LOI, but now we're going to ask them to revise their bid once again. And in a sell-side process, I never know how many rounds of bidding there will be. Sometimes there's 1, sometimes there's 10. I never know. What I'm trying to do is each round eliminate acquirers, push everyone up higher, and the lower ones, I want to boot them from the process. So on day 2, I ask for revised bids. And I say, next Monday at 5 p.m., please tender your revised offer in order to effectively stay in the process. And we will continue to do that. And every time I ask for a revised bid, I'm providing more information. So, of course, after that initial date that you had with them, the acquirers will have a lot more questions, right? They're going to, I'm going to ask for a revised bid, and they're going to say, hey, we need to understand trends in gross margins and what's going on with this big client. And we noticed this, and we had issues about HR that we talked about, and how can we grapple with that? A million different questions. But we will answer those acquirers' questions, but in exchange for that, they're going to have to come in with a higher bid. And, the best way to deal with that, and again, every process is unique. What I will typically do is, let's say after management meetings, now I have 5 bona fide acquirers that want to do the deal. We had 10, 3 fell out, then we have 7, now we have 2 fell out, we have 5. So now I've got 5 bidders that have all asked me questions. We're going to take all of those questions and we're going to amalgamate them. So 5 acquirers, each give us 10 questions. Now we've got 50 questions. We're going to answer all of those questions, and we're going to spend time going through them. And we're going to, and we might even add some additional questions to it. Who knows? Like, we just might add a few extra questions. And we're going to shape this, and we will send this question package, this data package, out to all acquirers simultaneously. And we're going to do that because oftentimes it's important for other buyers to see some of the questions that other buyers are asking. Now, on occasion, there are questions in there that do us no good. Sometimes an acquirer could be more informed about a business or about the principles of a business than others. Somebody might have had a drunk driving issue, for example, and it was one acquirer that found that. That's not relevant to the transaction. You're the seller, you got nailed for drunk driving. You're not going to be a part of the acquisition going forward. They shouldn't care about your driving record. It's not relevant to the discussion. An acquirer does some research, they find this record, they may do a background search, they ask some questions about it. I'm not going to put that in the questionnaire package because I don't want to draw attention to something that is not relevant or germane in any way, shape, or form and should not have any impact on your deal. So I'm going to remove that. But for the most part, the big list of questions go out to all of the acquirers, and now they're like, okay, there are a lot of folks looking at this. There are a lot of folks asking a lot of questions. We need to sharpen our pencil. It's time for the next round. Let's bid. And we continue to ask them to revise your bid forward until acquirers fall out. And, I oftentimes find myself in a position where there might be 2, right? Depending on how we're running the process, we might ultimately, at the end of the bidding, we might sign either a letter of intent, or we might sign an exclusivity agreement and allow 2 or more acquirers to do diligence simultaneously. Now, allowing 2 or more acquirers to do diligence simultaneously is more similar to a full controlled auction rather than a modified auction. In a modified auction, you're typically signing a letter of intent with 1 acquirer who has exclusive access to deal materials. But we're going to continue this process until we get to the best terms. And I always tell every client, like, from a psychological perspective, you absolutely need to be agnostic as to who's going to do this deal. And 50% of the time, clients will say, hey, I know I've got a bunch of options, but I really like acquirer A. They have a very similar culture to us. I've known those guys for years. I think my company would meld very well with theirs. And while that may be all well and good, and all of those things true, at the end of the day, we're selling a business here, so we're focused on money and terms. And that acquirer should be treated just like every other acquirer, and they should go through the process simultaneously with the others. And you shouldn't fall in love. The second you start falling in love with one particular acquirer, now you have that disparity of desire. Like, you only have eyes for that particular acquirer. You want to do a deal and you're willing to make accommodations, and that actually comes out in the process. So you need to attempt to blind yourself from that. Look at all acquirers equally and let the facts speak for themselves when we get towards the end of the bidding process. Once we start getting towards the end of the bidding process, it's very, very important for us to think about how leverage is played out throughout the acquisition mating dance, right? So we brought a lot of acquirers in, which gave you optionality, right? You were the dude with all the chicks after you. It allowed you to really bid up the price of your business. And we demonstrated that, right? We demonstrated to the acquirers that they had a lot of competition and they were gonna have to pay to play. We concealed information throughout. You did a fantastic job on those management meetings. You were fun, you were playful, you were passionate about your business, you asked some great questions, you didn't bloviate, you did exactly what you were supposed to do, and all the acquirers loved you. Great job.